What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Random video once again. Why? I wanted to do a WCW video again. Who knows, the next video might be WCW also. Anyways, I was always confused as to why WCW would unmask Rey Mysterio Jr. as a kid, and I just never knew the full details. I just remember seeing that old YouTube video and being like, huh? That's how he looks? That's Rey Mysterio? I mean, if you're as old as me, I'm pretty sure you went on the internet like 10, 12, 13 years ago and you're like, you search Rey Mysterio Unmasked. You just had to. I did it before. I specifically remember doing it several years earlier. You did it for sure. I am certain if you grew up with the internet, you did it. Guaranteed. It's odd to me that they unmasked him because the mask was essentially sacred to the guy, and on a few occasions he refused to give in to their requests. But in February of 1999, he finally did it. On paper, the storyline seemed like a good way to establish Rey Mysterio as a star. He obviously wasn't going to get pushed to the main event, but still, regardless, it was a push. Could they have given him the push without removing the mask? Well, of course, they could have done a story like that, but WCW, they didn't believe the masks were marketable. The luchadors are removing all their masks, Juventud and the others. It was like a red target in a way. I wanted to do something on Rey for a few months. I considered his title reign, but I'll just save that for another time. I want it to be one of those good videos, such as the Batista one, the John Cena title reign, those kinds. So expect it in the future. Anyways, let's get into it. Now at this point in time, December 1998, January 1999, Rey Mysterio Jr. was a part of the Latino World Order. He didn't really want to join, but after losing a match to the leader, Eddie Guerrero, he was a part of it. He grew to become the most loyal out of all the guys in the group when they were forced to disband. This was because the OG NWO, the NWO Elite, reformed and wanted to eradicate the other version of the group, the fake one. On the January 7th, 1999 episode of Thunder, the NWO showed that they were serious about this little reforming, and Rey Mysterio Jr. just so happened to be in the ring when the new World Order attacked. They destroyed Psychosis, but allowed for Mysterio Jr. to leave. Later that week, Ric Flair, who was in power, wanted the LWO to take off their shirts. Why? This was because Flair recognized the talent the team had and wanted to make use of them, unlike Eric Bischoff, which was the entire reason why Eddie Guerrero formed the group in the first place. He even told them that the money's coming their way. They all took off their shirts except for one person, Rey Mysterio Jr. The guy wasn't even interested in being a part of the group. Turns out he's the one that's the most loyal to it. Like, what's going on? One thing to know is that Eddie had just gone down with an injury, so the group weren't really doing much. Later that night, NWO's own Lex Luger approached Rey Mysterio. He wanted Rey to take off the shirt. Mysterio refused to do so, and Luger forcefully removed it. Funny enough, the total package underestimated him and actually got his ass handed to him. Unfortunately, though, strength topped speed on this night, and Luger stood tall. Then all of a sudden, Wolfpack member Conan runs down there and tells Lex to stop. Rey's his buddy. He's known him for a very long time, and he was there to defend him. All of a sudden, the rest of the NWO enters the ring. Conan thinks Kev is on his side, but he's dismantled with a taser. To top it all off, they sprayed NWO on his back. As for why Rey didn't take off the shirt, he revealed that red, white, and green are his colors and it's brown pride. Regarding the mask, it's his life and he will never take it off. As for Lex Luger and the NWO, he's ready. He ain't scared of them, and they can bring it on. The total package heard Rey's challenge loud and clear, and later in the night, along with Liz and Big Kev, responded to Conan and Rey's remarks. They admitted that the reason why they kicked Conan out of the NWO is because he's got no soul. As for Mysterio, Luger made fun of his size and mentioned the mask, and then he proceeded to claim that Rey's mask will be removed tonight. However, he did give Rey the chance to call off the match. All he had to do was just hand the mask to them, but if he doesn't, they're going to beat him silly. Bust him open and take his mask. The match goes down and Rey still wore LWO's colors. He showed a lot of heart out there, and there was a real chance for him to win it, but only a few seconds in, Nash walks down to ringside. Luger was very arrogant and full of his own power, and Rey, on the other hand, was tough. He put in such a gutsy performance that Kevin Nash had to cause the DQ. Despite this, he brought the fight to the NWO for only a few seconds because Nash hit the jackknife and Luger went for the torture rack. Luckily, help was on the way because Conan ran in with a chair. Those guys ran out of the ring so fast you'd think they were going to get a raise or something. Rey was looking good during this point, He was hanging with the big boys, the top guys. And later that week, he main evented Thunder, teaming up with Conan to face the Outsiders. Of course, it had to end with the same image that WCW is synonymous with, but still, they got to main event. Later that week, K-Dog and Rey Mysterio came out to address the events of Thunder. Conan wanted those two to look like fools, and they issued a challenge. They told those two that they could have any type of match they want, whether it be a wager match, a cage match, whatever. They will accept the challenge. The NWO did hear them loud and clear and scoffed at the challenge. They thought it was idiotic to put up a stipulation. Regardless, though, they accepted the challenge, but put up Elizabeth's hair on the line. It's not like she was that worried. That's one thing to mention. She wasn't really that scared of the fact that her hair was on the line. And so it was official. Rey's mask, Elizabeth's hair. The team didn't have much interaction with each other during the build. Luger attacked Rey before Nitro, and Rey returned the favor on the final Thunder. He shut the limo door into Luger's arm, resulting in him being unable to compete at Super Raw. And I believe this was because he went down with a bicep injury. Rey was very confident that he ain't losing the mask. Konnan, meanwhile, was looking to deflate their confidence as he felt that the guys were underestimating them. They had the guaranteed money and it was making them lazy, complacent, all of that. Luger ended up being replaced by Scott Hall, so the outsiders were back. The NWO weren't really all that worried, and it was like they were facing SpongeBob or something by the looks of it. The match itself, it wasn't bad. Hall and Nash were very arrogant as expected. Rey had speed, high-flying moves. The guy was putting in a gutsy performance. He gets knocked down, he gets back up. Knocked down, back up. Outsiders were just toying with him, and by the time Konnan got in, he was way more energetic than those two. They were in total control. He had some fire in him, but then he ran into the clothesline. He was going for 1-2. And Rey's back in. He delivers drop kicks, big sexy, and Hall struggled, and momentum was finally on the good guys' side. Rey managed to catch Nash with a moonsault. Liz distracted the ref. Konnan was assaulted by Luger, and this leads to an outsider's edge. Ref doesn't notice. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Elizabeth's relieved. Nash recovers, and it was time for the unmasking. Bobby Heenan was under the belief that Rey's ugly. He spat at them, and Konnan did the honors. And so he's unmasked. For the first time ever, that's when the world got to see what Rey Mysterio Jr. looked like. It's crazy. Kevin Nash was at a loss of words. He's making fun of him and he even asked to put it back on. It's just some very embarrassing stuff for Rey, just thinking about it. From Rey's perspective, it was the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. In an interview back in 2018, Mysterio elaborated on how the decision was made for him to unmask. And I quote, "It all started as a rumor for me to wrestle without the mask, and if I'm not mistaken, Scott Hall was the one that kept on saying, 'You got a baby face, you're a pretty motherfucker.' He goes, 'You don't need the mask. Look at that face. It sells.' So that began to get bigger and bigger and escalated up until Halloween Havoc in 1997, where Eric Bischoff had me thinking I was going to lose that mask that night. I was paranoid because the mask is everything to me. It's my legacy. It's my heritage. It's something that I wear with honor and respect for my uncle. It's what wanted me to become a luchador. Being able to grow up as a fan and see my uncle wrestle in Tijuana. Witnessing him losing his mask at one point in his career, he broke down crying thinking that it's not going to be the same. For this rumor to become reality, then later that night came of the orders of me having to lose the mask on that pay-per-view against Scott and Kevin Nash. At the time, I said there's nothing I can do at this point. I fought and I tried, and there's just no sense of pursuing something that's not going to happen, so I gave in. I had a contract, I had the obligations, so I gave into it and made the best out of it. Bischoff, on the other hand, had this to say. The goal in unmasking Rey and Juventud was to further establish their real characters with the audience, and while the strength of the mask in Mexico is obviously very important, even more so today in the United States than it was back in the late 90s, but Rey and Guerrero were very good-looking athletes. As anyone who's worked with Vince McMahon or WWE will tell you, you sell emotions with your face and expressions during a match. To a certain degree, masked wrestlers are at a certain disadvantage at getting the audience to relate to them by seeing their facial emotions during a match. The goal is to attempt to broaden the appeal for those characters by allowing the audience to feel their emotions at a greater level during matches. I mean, I get where he's coming from, but they could have made money with the masks, so there's that. Vince sold a hell of a lot of those masks. They're probably the best-selling item in WWE shop history, definitely top 10. They have to be. The fact that Hurricane made so much money yet he wasn't a main eventer tells a lot. Now that Jennifer Aniston's ex was now unmasked, this run would start off with a huge bang. The next night on Nitro, Kevin Nash apologized for cheating, and since the mask doesn't fit his head, Rey Mysterio should come down to the ring and get his mask back. He came out and told Nash that he's got what he's wanted, now he's getting what he wants. That was a match because it was booked between the two, so that's what Rey was insinuating. Bell rings and Mysterio Jr. was all focused. He was hell-bent on winning. Nash made insults, of course, bullied Rey, but once again, it was clear that Big Six, he was underestimating this guy. The fans were loving it, but Nash quickly righted the ship. The tossing commenced, and once again, Nash was busy showboating, and just as he's going for the jackknife, Rey delivers some stiff shots, goes for the cover, 1, 2, 3, he's done it. Sudden victory out of nowhere, Rey Mysterio Jr. beat a two-time WCW World Champion. I believe this was the first show Kevin Nash booked in its entirety. I believe Eric Bischoff went to France during this week. That's what the reports say. They say this was the first show that Nash booked. Then again, there's others that say he began in November 98. It's very conflicting. But the most reliable one that I could find is that this was the first show he booked. So he started off his run by putting Rey Mysterio over. The commentary team began calling him a giant killer, and because of the loss, Kevin Nash saw him as a potential member of the Wolfpack. Rey didn't show up on this night the following week, so Nash called him on a cell phone. Mysterio declined the offer, saying that he's not interested, and Kevin was mildly disappointed. Later that night, the Giant Killer faced Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, during the match, he struggled, of course. I mean, the guy's bigger than him, and for some odd reason, Bigelow did have Mysterio beat at one point, but preferred to continue the match. There was this moment, which I consider to be in the top 10 funniest things I've ever seen from WCW. It's just something that is very unnecessary. They could have waited 5 more minutes or done it a few minutes earlier. Like, they could have said, oh, it's the top of the hour earlier on or something, or they could have just timed it well. Then again, in defense of WCW, it makes it look a bit more realistic, so there's that. Bam Bam was generating heat. Ray had his moments, but they were only small windows. He ended up making the most out of a moment and beat Bam Bam Bigelow. And so 2 giants were down. He beat Kevin Nash, and now he's beating Bam Bam. Right after the match, Mean Gene interviewed Ray, who was interrupted by Lex Luger. He told him that he should have taken the shirt when Kevin Nash comes in and knocks him down. Then to top it all off, Disco asks Kevin to wedgie him. Shortly afterwards, it was confirmed that both men were facing off at Uncensored. Before the event, however, Rey Mysterio Jr. went one-on-one with Scott Norton. Again, Flash decides to underestimate him. Hell, he arrogantly said, I can beat this man anytime I want. He was taking his time with Ray, but this would come back to bite him. At this point in time, however, it was never ending. Norton was just all over Ray, inside, outside the ring, whatever. And when it was time to hit the shoulder breaker, Ray managed to counter. He had some fight in him, so Norton slams him into the turnbuckle before hitting a powerbomb of sorts. 1, 2, he breaks the count. See, they're screwing themselves over. One-handed press slam follows, and again, Norton breaks a count. Unfortunately for himself, Ray Jr. proceeded to low blow him and quickly go for the cover to win it. Giant Killer reigns supreme once again. Also, later that week, he scored the victory in a tag team match against Scott Steiner and the stuffed Buff Bagwell. So, Rey Mysterio at this point was probably Superstar of the Month, by the looks of it. He was doing very good. At Uncensored, Big Sexy actually took things seriously. Right out of the gate, he delivers a boot to Rey Mysterio. Threw him around, but again, at a moment's notice, he brings a fight. The guy, he's just like that. But it's quickly back to square one. Like Tony Schiavone said, it takes Ray 3 to 4 moves in order to knock down Nash, whereas for Big Sexy, 1 move, that's all. He slowed down the pace, hit the world-famous elbow, no hair flip this time around. Nash was just on cruise control at this point, but then Junior delivered a low blow, drop kick, and then the Bronco Buster, and it seemed like things were finally clicking, but Luger ruined everything. Jackknife powerbomb, and that's all she wrote. Giant Killer's streak is over. Now, it wasn't like things were bad for Rey Mysterio Jr. Quite the contrary. He had challenged Billy Kidman for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship on Nitro the next night and actually won the belt. The match itself was really awesome. It's one of WCW's best matches from 1999. As it was 9 minutes of pure fun, and to top it all off, there was a new champion. Rey Mysterio Jr. is flying high in the summer of 1999, and if that wasn't enough, he faced the Nature Boy Ric Flair for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship at Panama City, Florida, in the main event. This was his first title shot, I should note. Once again, Ray put up a fight and made the viewers believe there was a chance, albeit a small one, but still. He whooped his ass, but unfortunately though, Double A was there, so Mysterio Jr. was in for a hard time. Flair slowed down the pace for a bit. There was near falls coming from Ray. Not a bad match at all. He was made to look pretty good out there. And hell, at one point, he had the match won, but Anderson pulled the ref out of the ring to cause the DQ. Despite this, Ray did have the last laugh, so there's that. Still wasn't it, though, because the following week, Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko issued a challenge to any team, and Ray managed to convince Billy Kidman that they should take up the offer. They did, and the duo emerged victorious to become the tag team champions. Sure, Raven had to DDT Malenko, but the belts were on their waist at this point. So yeah, this is where I'm going to end the video. Whatever follows from here on, it morphs into the Filthy Animals faction, so that's a whole other story. But Rey Mysterio, he got this giant push, and it's fun to watch, you know. I don't think they should have unmasked him. I think it was a bad idea. They could have made money selling the damn masks. And I think Ray does know how to convey emotions with the mask on, regardless of the fact that the mask decision may be seen as something bad. I like this run. Could it have led to more? Of course. But I'm pretty sure it could have been worse. What do you guys think of Rey Mysterio, a Giant Killer? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the Wheelbarrow Bulldog on the like button, and perhaps the Frankensteiner on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.